Welcome to this month's First Friday Fellowship. I'm going to start a screen share here so we can go through the presentation today. I'm glad you're with me. My name is Chris McClure, and I just want to just really welcome everybody that's watching this, whether you watched it live or recorded. One of the reasons I started doing this is so that it can be more flexible for people. And I know that our schedules are kind of crazy. I know that things are a little busy at times. And so, whether it's morning or evening or whenever it is, it's always hard to try to figure out when's the perfect time for people to jump onto a training. But I wanted to get this out there because I just really believe that what I'm going to share today is very valuable. It will help you immensely in your growth journey. And so I just want to welcome you and thank you for taking the time to watch this. So this is the First Friday Fellowship. I started this a few months ago to add value to the people in my community. And then I decided to make it online and virtual so that I could reach out to more people and offer more value long-term through the power of the internet. So that's why we're here today. I'm glad you're with me, and I'm glad that you're watching this. And the whole vision behind this fellowship event is to discover how to reach your potential and become a transformational leader. I look around at our world today and see such a leadership void in so many areas, whether it's government or in families or in communities locally, in workplaces, in churches and schools, wherever. There's a lot of people who have good intentions, but they just don't know how to be a good leader, or they just haven't grown for a long time, or maybe they think they've arrived and so they stop continually growing. So that's really what I want to address today in particular. But my passion, my heart behind this fellowship event is for you to get better at what you do and who you are, so that you can add more value and really multiply your impact with others. So the First Friday Fellowship happens on the first Friday of each month, and I'm glad that you're able to be here with me today. Just for those who might not be aware of my background, my name is Chris McClure. I'm a husband to Jill. We've been married just over 16 years. We have 3 great kids, Ryan, Evan, and Anna. I'm a breakthrough coach. As I've gone through my own path of discovery and learning, I realize that there's so many of us that just really need help breaking through many barriers that we face. So that's my passion, is to be a breakthrough coach to help people get past whatever that barrier is next, so that they can keep moving forward. And we continue to hit barriers, so we need continual help to keep moving forward. And so that's my passion with that. I'm also a leadership trainer. I'm a passionate student of leadership. Been a growing leader for 20 years. I have used my leadership training and growth in a variety of ways. But I realize more and more how much, as I mentioned before, desperately we need the help to be a strong leader in our communities, in our workplaces, in our world. So I joined the John Maxwell team, which is a global team now of over 16,000 coaches, speakers, and trainers, specifically in the areas of personal growth and leadership training. We are passionate about helping others grow to reach their potential. And I'm also a certified member of the Igniting Souls team, where we help people focus on really discovering or rediscovering their identity, their purpose, and their direction. So we help people look at, who am I, why am I here, and what should I be doing with my life to live it out to the full, to have the most impact on the world, and to live in the most fulfilling way. So my businesses that I'm a part of are Lead Life Big. I began that as a solo venture 2 years ago. And then I also partnered with Mark Williams, who is in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We work together for growing Maximize Leaders. We are doing joint venture projects together on that all the time too. So that's just a little bit about who I am. I'd love to give the background just so that you get to know me a little bit. So glad that you're able to be with me today and to work on yourself. This is a time for you to invest in you. So I always like to start my trainings with this slide, because I just think it helps us get in the right frame of mind, that there's a difference between events and processes. And today's training is actually an event because it's a one-time thing. And so an event encourages decisions, but a process encourages development. So we make decisions when we go to an event, whether it's online or live and in person. We make decisions that we need to do something, or we see areas in our life we want to work on. And that's great because it becomes a catalyst for us. But we need a process after that to actually develop into those things that we see that are gaps in our lives. An event motivates people. It is that catalyst. It tells me, you know what, I need to go back home. I need to do this, or I need to emphasize this in my workplace or in my family or wherever. But a process is what actually matures people. So you're motivated, but then you need to mature. An event is a calendar issue. You put this item on your calendar today, or you block time in your schedule to watch this training today. But a process is a culture issue. A process actually is kind of like tilling the soil. You are cultivating growth. You are helping yourself, and you're helping others become better day by day. It becomes a part of the culture that you have a professional development culture. And then an event it challenges people. You probably sat through speakers before, or at conferences or in meetings, and you felt challenged. You're thinking, oh, I have a long way to go. And we need that from time to time. But a process is what takes that challenge to the change that we need. So both are needed and both are great. But I always like to point out the difference that, like, today's training alone in and of itself isn't the difference maker. What the difference maker is the process that we go into after we have the catalyst of an event, after we go home, after we shut down the computer, after we have that meeting. What are you going to do with that? And that's what I really always like to emphasize, because it's so important for us to remember. So today's topic is one that I've been thinking about for a while. It's inspired by John Maxwell's great book, The 15 Indisputable Laws of Leadership, or Invaluable Laws of Growth. I'm sorry. Too many books that he has with all these numbers and titles. So the 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. And we're focusing today specifically on the importance of intentionality in our personal growth. And I will share why as we go through this. And so what can you expect today through this training? Well, first, you can learn why a growth focus is better than a goals focus. You'll learn 8 growth gap traps that we often don't even see in ourselves. And then number 3, we will learn 4 key actions to become intentional. What are those action steps that we need to become intentional? I'm going to share 4 key actions with you that'll help you with that. So that's what you can expect today as we go through this training. But I want to start with this, that the law of intentionality is that growth doesn't just happen. You see, a lot of times we want to grow, but we really leave it up to chance. We really don't take it seriously enough to take action of our own. And so we struggle. You know, we want different results, or we want a better outcome. We want more influence. We want more impact. We want more income, whatever it is. There's a lot of things in life that we want more of. But the reality is that growth doesn't just happen. We have to be intentional about it. And that's where Maxwell emphasizes this in his great book, The 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth, is that we have to understand this early on in our growth process, that we have to be intentional. Because you see, working hard doesn't guarantee success. This is a misnomer, I think, especially in our American culture, is that if you just keep working harder, you'll be more successful. Now, working hard is important, don't get me wrong. And working hard does bring a certain level of success at different times. But working hard alone doesn't guarantee success. You've probably heard the phrase, work smarter, not just harder. And there's a reason for that, because hard work takes you so far, but eventually you can't physically or mentally or emotionally work any harder. We have limits. Our energy may go down, our health may go down, our age just may limit us from what we want to do. You see, I had one of my grandfathers was a sheet metal worker in Cincinnati for many, many years, and he worked hard. And he would come home and he did a lot of projects and was super handy and could do so much to help people and to do things in his own home and for his family. He worked hard. He amazed me in a lot of things that he did. But working hard alone isn't what guarantees your success. I mean, he was successful in most realms, but I would argue that his greater success was the people that he apprenticed, that learned from him over the years, that went on to continue their career because of what he taught them. So working hard is part of the equation, but it's not the entire equation. And too many times we just think that if I just work harder, if I put in more hours, if I just put more energy to this, if I just whatever, then then I'll become a success, or this thing will become successful. And I'll be real honest, I operate from that mindset too many times because I'm a very type A driven, get it done personality. And so for me, it's easy for me to say, let's just work harder. Let's just do more. Let's just keep pressing. And while there's a level of that needs to happen, it's not in and of itself the answer. So intentionality plays a part because working hard doesn't guarantee success. The other thing is this: hope isn't a strategy. If we say, I hope that I can earn more income next year, or I hope that I'm a better spouse or a better parent or a better friend, I hope that I have more impact or influence on those around me. You see, we can hope as much as we want, but hope in itself isn't a strategy. Hope doesn't get us anywhere by itself. We have to take action. We have to be intentional. And so that's where I really want us to land today. And so I want to share this idea from Maxwell's book that really challenged me when I first read this, and it took me a while to really process this. And so it may do that for you too. But he says, if you focus on goals, you may hit goals, but that doesn't guarantee growth. If you focus on growth, you will grow and always hit goals. Now, to give you a little bit more backstory on this statement, John has shared live events that I've been at where he's really dug deep into this. And what he means is this: too many times we become so goal centered that when we achieve that goal, we actually stop growing, because that becomes the goal becomes the destination. The goal becomes what we were going after. And so once we hit that, then it's like, well, check that off the list, move on, it's over. But if we're growth oriented, if we're focused on our growth, we never stop growing. You see, one of the most exciting things for me is to think about, I should be growing all the days of my life. Even when I'm old and physically unable to do certain things, my mind, I can still grow and expand my mind. I can still grow my relationships. I can still grow in other areas of my life. So even when certain areas are limited, our growth can happen in other areas. And so until the day we die, we can really have impact. I've shared this story many times before, but one of my new good friends over the last year or so is an 83-year-old woman who just is getting her first book published and has a goal to reach 100,000 people with her message in the next 10 years. You see, I just turned 40, and I have all sorts of energy and passion to keep moving forward and keep growing, keep developing, so I can be a better leader and a better husband and father and friend and just whatever I'm involved in, I want to be better. See, I have those goals, but I know that while I'm growing, I'm going to hit those goals. When I start to emphasize certain areas, I will grow, and then I will start to hit goals that come up in those areas. And so my friend Pat, as she is in her early 80s, she's not saying, I'm at the end of my life, so I'm stopping. She's saying, you know what? I'm 83 years old, and I don't know how much time I have left, but I want to make a difference. And so she is growth oriented. She joined the John Maxwell team as well a few years ago. What would make an 80-year-old woman join a leadership and personal development team if they don't have a desire to just keep growing and to keep moving forward and wanting to make an impact in the lives of others? See, she's growth oriented. She's not just goal oriented. See, for her, she could have written her book and be done and say, you know what, I wrote my book. I can stop now. I can just, essentially wait to die. Just enjoy my family while I can, while my health is good, all these things, right? She could have all these things going through her mind, but instead she's saying, no, I'm writing this book, and that's going to be my platform so that I can reach and impact 100,000 people in the next 10 years. That's a growth-oriented mindset versus a goal-oriented mindset. See, many people even think about writing, like, I want to write a book someday. Well, if you want to write a book, that's great, but do you think about the fact that that book can be a catalyst for many other opportunities? It could be speaking engagements. It could be coaching people through your material. It could be, just a lot of media interviews, podcasts, news, whatever, platforms you can get a hold of, articles that are written, and your message can spread. So writing the book could feel like a goal that you could accomplish one time and it be done. But if you think about, well, what can I do with this message after it's written? Or what can I do once I train and I get that college degree and take that next step? Or what could I do if I get that promotion? So the promotion in and of itself can't be the end all. That should be really the beginning of the next phase, the next season of your life. So be growth oriented while you have goals in your mind, but be growth oriented so that as you're growing, those goals, you'll hit them one by one, and you're growing in areas to get you to those goals, but don't just think that goal is the end. James Allen said this: people are anxious to improve their circumstances, but are unwilling to improve themselves. They therefore remain bound. This is kind of a painful quote, honestly, for a lot of people, because what this says is that we have to take personal accountability for our lives. We want to improve our circumstances, but we're unwilling to improve ourselves. And if that's the case, if that's where we are, our circumstances aren't going to change. In fact, many times when we refuse to change and improve ourselves, our circumstances get worse because we're in a different state of mind that isn't positive, that it's not moving forward, that's not encouraging for good things to happen to come. So therefore, he says we remain bound by the situation we're in. And many people don't like the situation they're in. So we have to do something about it. So if you have dreams, goals, or aspirations, you need to grow to achieve them. That's just the bottom line. You need to grow to achieve them. It's like the whole idea. I use the analogy. It may be overused in many ways, but it's the whole idea of steering a parked car. You can crank on the steering wheel, and the wheels may shift here and there, but it's a whole lot easier to touch that steering wheel and make adjustments when that car is going, because you really can't steer a parked car. It's not going anywhere in the first place. But even when you start to go even at a slow speed, doesn't matter how fast you're going, but as long as you're going forward, you can start to adjust that steering wheel a little bit and start to make course corrections, and you can start to see positive things happen. So you need to grow to achieve the dreams, goals, or aspirations that you have. You need to get moving and be intentional with that. So Jim Rohn said it this way: in order to be, do, or have more, you have to become more. In order to be, do, or have more, you have to become more. This is all about growth. This is all about, are we going to become the person we need to become in order to achieve what we want to achieve? It's that simple. Now, the steps to take may not be as simple as that reality, because growth is an uphill climb many times. We have to break through barrier after barrier after barrier. My friend Mark, he has this analogy that he just thinks about. He talks about that. What's my next mountain? I'm going to climb this mountain, and then I'm going to get up there, and I'm going to see the next mountain. So I'm going to climb that. But to get to that next mountain, you have to go back down the mountain you're on, through a valley, work through, become more, grow, so you can climb that next mountain. You see, growth is a process always, and we have to fight through barriers of all kinds in order to keep growing and keep moving forward. So to become more, you have to be intentional. That's the whole point of this lesson today, and that's what I hope you take away, is that if you want to become more, if you want to achieve more, if you want to be like I said, better in relationships, better as a leader at work, have more in your life, it has to be with intentionality. There's just no way around it. So there are some growth gap traps that we can often fall into. And the first one is this: it's the assumption gap, that I assume that I will automatically grow. I assume that I will automatically grow. This is where a lot of people fall. Now, I think the reason that we often fall into this, honestly, is because that's kind of what happens to us early on in life. So when a baby is born, they automatically grow. And the time between being born and those preschool, early elementary years in particular, you just watch a child, and in such a very short time, how much they grow physically, mentally, emotionally, going from not being able to communicate to having this vocabulary now, to not being able to walk. They're so dependent on everybody else. They can't feed themselves. They can't care. move themselves around, to running and playing and jumping and climbing and eating and all these things. I mean, there's this, humongous growth at an exponential rate early on in life. And so we see those things happen automatically. And then even as we watch kids get into, from elementary into middle school and high school, and into their early, young adult years, there is a lot of automatic growth. But for those of us who are past those stages, we know that you plateau at some point. You stop getting taller. You stop, being able to just do a lot of the things that were automatically happening. You have to put effort into it. Have to put energy into it. For me, one of my goals this summer was heading into becoming 40 years old. I wanted to lose some weight. I wanted to get healthier. I wanted to be more fit. And I will tell you, as many people will experience, and I experienced it once again, to achieve the goals I had for my health was a lot harder at 40 years old than it was at 20 years old. It was a lot harder than it was at 10 years old. We have to work at the things that we want to achieve and to grow in. So the assumption gap is that I assume that I will automatically grow, and we have to get past that, because just like physically we stop just continuing to grow, and our body then shifts and changes. We have to assume that continual growth forward isn't going to always just happen the way we've always known it to be. The second gap is the knowledge gap, that I don't know how to grow. See, this is where we need mentors, we need coaches, we need people in our lives. This is why we go to a conference. That's why we do trainings like this. This is why we read books. This is why we find people that are farther ahead of us, because many times we know we need to change. We know something needs to be different, but we just don't know how. We don't know what those next steps are. My friend Mark and I, as working together, we often say, if we could just have a checklist from people who have been where we want to go, many times would help us. And maybe you feel that way. Maybe you feel like, I just need somebody to tell me, do A, B, and C so that I can take action on those things. You could be willing, you just don't know how. The next gap is the timing gap. It's not the right time to begin. See, this is where procrastination hits us. This is where we start to think, well, I don't have the time, or I don't have the money, or right now it's just not the right time for whatever reason. My family situation, my job situation, my health, whatever. And so what we do is we put our own growth on the back burner. And we're, in a sense, we're waiting for the perfect time. And there just isn't such a thing. So we have to be careful that we continue to take action and continue to be intentional while the timing doesn't feel right, so that when the timing does feel right, we will have already made progress. Number 4 is the mistake gap. I'm afraid of making mistakes. Wow, this one paralyzes a lot of us too. It's that fear of failure. If I risk something, if I step out and try to achieve something, if I take on a new project that I'm not familiar with, I might fail. And you know what? The reality is you might fail. But here's the thing. Failing at a project, failing at taking those steps does not make you a failure. And that's what a lot of people are afraid of. They feel like, if I fail at this, then I'm a failure. But it's just not true. We know all the great inventors in our world. We've heard the stories of Thomas Edison. We've heard the stories of others who, they tried and experimented over and over and over again on all these different projects. And by all means, they were failing miserably until they didn't fail, until they had a breakthrough on the thing that now they're famous for. You see, for us, we need to understand that anytime we are growing, anytime we are taking positive steps forward, we are risking failure. But as human beings, we are naturally risk averse. We are looking for safety. We're looking for an opportunity where there's no chance we can fail, but that's really not there. I mean, even by staying still, there's a chance of failing, because things can change around us, external things. So the mistake gap is, I'm afraid of making mistakes. And we need to be careful that we don't fall into this one. Number 5, the perfection gap. I have to find the best way before I start. Maybe this is you. If you're a more analytical minded person, this is probably more of a temptation for you than others. I'm around a lot of engineers in our community. I'm around people who are very thoughtful about what they do. And there's a great side of that. But then there's also the side of that where you have to have the perfect answer before you ever start. And that's not where success comes from. Yes, you want to do your research. Yes, you want to do your homework, but we need to look at things the way Google does, or the way Apple does, or the way, app developers do. They beta test something, they put it out there on the market, they give people a chance to work on it. But while that's being released, while it's being out there, they're finding the glitches along the way and they're adjusting along the way. I mean, think about it. If Google or Apple or Microsoft or whoever, name your favorite innovative company, if they would wait to have a perfect product before they launched it, that they never had to update again, how many of these products would we have? You and I wouldn't be having this conversation over video right now, because Zoom wouldn't have created their platform, because it wouldn't have been perfect ever. It continually needs tweaking and updating along the way. Things just happen. So don't find yourself in that perfection gap, feeling like you have to have the best way before you start. Just start. And we'll get to that here in a few minutes as well, because this is important. Number 6, the inspiration gap. I don't feel like doing it. I'll tell you, this is a big one, for me at least. Even just this week, I was sharing with some friends that I'm doing this workout program this summer, and I have seen great results. I feel really good. I've lost 15, 16 pounds as I've watched my nutrition, as I've taken my fitness plan seriously. But last week, I got off track with my schedule a little bit, and I did my 3 workouts that I was going to do, but I was kind of out of sync. And then the first couple of nights of the week, Sunday night, Monday night, I went to bed later than I normally do. So I didn't feel like getting up early and working out like I had planned to do. And so I didn't feel like it. And so, but by Tuesday afternoon, I just told myself I have to get up in the morning and do my workout. And I'll tell you, I woke up Wednesday morning, I didn't feel like it. When I was working out, I didn't feel like it. I had to really talk my way through it. I had to tell myself to keep pushing forward, to keep going, because of the weirdness and the awkwardness of my schedule and how I'd kind of thrown myself off. I was sluggish and I was struggling to achieve what I wanted to achieve during my workout. But I pressed through and I completed the workout, and I just had to find a way, because I didn't feel like doing it. And so many times we are guided by our emotions that if when my alarm goes off at 5 a.m. every day, I don't feel like getting out of bed. I just don't. Even though I try to go to bed earlier in the evening so I can be more energized at 5 a.m., very rarely do I ever feel like getting out of bed at 5. I don't jump out of bed all excited. But I do it because I have goals. I do it because I want the quiet of the morning before the kids get up for school, and so I can work out and do my stuff before our family gets really moving. But I don't often feel like it. So if I waited for inspiration, I'd be in trouble. But because of a discipline that I'm continually developing and working hard at developing, I'm now seeing the results that I want to see in my life. Number 7 is the comparison gap, that others are better than I am. This is one that I think most people at some point in time, some of us more than others, fall into. And if we really think about this logically, not emotionally, we would realize that there's always going to be somebody better than I am. I want to get to a certain place in my business and in my life and my family. But if I just looked out there and said, well, I can't do it because there's so many people better than I am, then I would never take steps and move forward. I would never achieve any types of forward progress that I want to. So the comparison trap can paralyze us as well, because if we're waiting to be number one in the world at everything, or the thing that we want to achieve, it's probably not going to happen, because even though when you think you are the best, you might find out that there's somebody better than you. I think about this regularly when I hear people talk about LeBron James being the best basketball player in the world. Now, maybe he is. But you know what? What if in some obscure place there's some person that's better at basketball than LeBron James? They just haven't been discovered. I don't know that that's true or not, but I've thought about that. Like when we put that label on somebody, then we're also saying that there's nobody else out there that could be better than them. And we need to be careful about that, because we put that pressure on ourselves. Like, if I can't be the best, then I shouldn't do it at all. That's just not true. Do what you can with the passion and the gifting that you have right where you are today. So don't compare yourself to others. Compare yourself to you and say, am I better today than I was yesterday? Am I better this year than I was last year? Am I growing or am I stagnating? Am I actually declining? We need to compare ourselves to the person in the mirror, not anybody else around us. And then number 8, the expectation gap. Excuse me. I thought that it would be easier than this. This is a big one. I could probably say about every one, right? But I think this is a big one because many times when we start this growth journey, we think it's going to be easier than it is. There are things that I had hoped to achieve in 12 months that I'm now 25 months away from that I haven't achieved yet. And I'm probably realistically another 10 to 12 months away from achieving some of those things. Right now, I have a better understanding of that. My expectations have been adjusted just over time and experience. But when I didn't realize that some of these goals within that first period of time, that first 12 months, like I expected, I found myself in a kind of a dark mental place. I was very discouraged. I was very frustrated. My expectation had been so high because honestly, in other areas of my life, I had grown to the place where I could achieve things much quicker than I was achieving some of my new goals. But what I had to realize was my new goals were something that were completely out of my box. They were completely out of what I'm used to doing. And so I needed to grow into the person that I need to become so that I can actually achieve those goals. See, that's why I have to be growth minded is that, I tell people now, every day I feel like I learn something more that I just don't know. And so instead of being discouraged by that, I think, you know what? That's just one more thing I need to add to my list to grow in if I'm going to achieve the goals that I want to achieve. And so that expectation gap can really discourage us, can really paralyze us. So that's the bad news, right? I mean, that's all the junk. That's the stuff that we battle in our minds and in our thoughts. So let's get to the practical because this is where I like to live. I like to live in the practical. I like to live where you tell me what are the actions that I need to take in order to become the person that I want to become, to achieve the goals and the dreams that I want to achieve. So how do you become intentional? That becomes the question. Well, number one is this. You need to take action now. Whether you feel ready or not, and most of the time we don't feel ready, take action now. My mentor, my coach, Carrie Oberbrunner, says it this way, that we need to take imperfect action. And that phrase has transformed my entire thinking about my life, personally and professionally. Because if I don't take imperfect action, I will never take action because no action that I take will be perfect. But if I'm waiting and I fall into that perfection trap, then I won't do this. But if I just start taking action on this next step that I feel like I can take, then the next step will be revealed to me and the next step and the next step and the next step. The problem that we often want is we want to know the 30 steps ahead that we're going to have to take. And so many of us don't even take the first step because we don't know the 30th step. Don't let that be you. Take action now. If you see at least something you're thinking, I probably ought to do that, then do it. Or maybe I should do or try this, then do it. Because the worst that you can do is try it and do it and realize that it's not the step. It's not the be all end all. It's not the silver bullet. It's not the magic potion. You can't wave a magic wand and have the perfect action. So take imperfect action now. Start taking action today on the things that you need to do in order to go towards the goals you have. So that's the first thing is take action now. The second thing is you need to face your fears. As a coach, one of the principles that I learned that really revolutionized, I would say, an idea for me is that we all have an invisible terror barrier that we bump up against at times where we're growing and we have new ideas and we want to achieve new things. We're excited about the future. And then all of a sudden we have this terror barrier, this fear that creeps in our mind, like, what if I fail? Or what are my friends or family going to think? Or what would my boss think? Or what would happen to me financially or to my relationships, or all these things. There's all this like what if stuff that starts to fly in our face. Now the acronym of fear that I always have loved is that it's false evidence appearing real. False evidence appearing real. See, the fears that we often have are not real things. They are just worst case scenarios that we dream up in our minds. I think about it as a kid. My two boys, that as I was teaching them how to ride their bikes, I remember the fear that they had because they felt like they were just going to fall every time and get hurt. That was false evidence, but it was appearing real to them in that moment. But when they finally realized that if they just did certain things and that I or their mom were helping them, stay balanced, they got a little more confident, And then they finally got to the place where we could let go and they would go. And did they fall? Sure. But you know what? They weren't afraid of falling every time because they didn't fall automatically when they were going through this progression. So we have to face our fears. Fears really just come because it's inexperience in that situation. Maybe it's a hard conversation that you need to have. And maybe you've not been in a situation to have that type of a conversation, or maybe you haven't had that conversation with this person before. And so you're staying in the shower and you're having this dreamed up conversation in your mind, and you're thinking, okay, I'm going to say this and she's going to say this, and then I'm going to have to say this. And we dream up what this is. And then we actually sit down with the person and we have a conversation, and it's nothing like we feared a lot of, 9 times out of 10. Do some conversations, some relationships go bad? Absolutely. But do every one of them? No, they don't. I even had that type of a conversation that even recently, where I thought it was going to be a more difficult conversation. But as I got into that conversation, the person had already kind of shifted some things in their mind. They've been processing through things, and they were on the solution side of it versus being defensive or combative. But I went into that meeting with a bit of trepidation and fear because I was expecting, in a sense, I had my walls up, already built up. And I went in thinking that I'm going to have to defend myself or somebody else or whatever, but I didn't. So that was false evidence appearing real for me. So we have to face our fears and realize that we need to push through those terror barriers in our life, those invisible things in our mind that tell us that things are going to go bad. The next thing is you need to make a growth plan. Part of being intentional is having a growth plan. Now, the best way to do this is to truly write it down, that you would say, I'm going to read this book and I'm going to do this, this, and this. Maybe go to a conference, maybe go to a training, maybe look for resources on the internet, maybe look for a mentor, maybe you start taking a college class, whatever it is, it doesn't matter, but write it down. Because that's when you write it down, you can see it. It will help you stay on course, on track. In the professional world, you might see it as a personal development plan, that this is my goal for this year, and how I'm going to achieve that. I'm going to do A, B, C, and D over the course of the next 12 months to achieve these goals and these mile markers along the way. So writing it down is very helpful. But even if it's just a mental checklist in your mind, what is your growth plan? See, that's one of the things that John Maxwell was talking about in his great book here, the 15 Valuable Laws of Growth. His whole journey started with a gentleman sitting down across a lunch table with him, asking him what his growth plan was. And he said, I fumbled around I was telling him about my accomplishments, about my achievements, and about this and about that. And the guy said, do you have a growth plan? And he said, I finally had to humbly admit I did not have a plan. And so ultimately, John bought a growth kit of leadership and personal growth development resources. And this is back in the late 60s, early 70s. And so he had to save up money and invested in this. And he went through that in a strategic way to grow. And it changed the trajectory of his life. I'm impacted today. You're impacted today. We're sitting on this call right now because of him putting together a growth plan with the advisement and the help of somebody else. So we need to have a plan. We need to be strategic. We need to think through what is the areas that I need to grow in, and what do I need to do to grow in those areas. And I would encourage you, don't make this overwhelming. Don't make it, I need to grow as a spouse. I need to read 10 books in the next month so I can like have a better marriage or be a better parent or whatever. Don't make things unrealistic. Think about this as bite-sized chunks. What can you do over the course of the next 12 months in a specific area to grow? And then tackle another area in the following year. See, a lot of times, and this is the temptation that we face, is we want to fix so many things in our life at one time. But the real impact that will happen for us is if we make a list of the things we want to grow in, and then we prioritize those, and then we say, okay, well, the first thing I feel is the top priority is this, so here's what I'm going to do about that this year, or the next month, or the next whatever time period. It doesn't have to be a 12-month growth plan, but many times 12 months of really digging in can really give you some exponential growth along the way. So make a growth plan. And then fourth, be accountable. Be accountable. Find someone that will simply ask you how you're doing, that they're willing to ask you the hard questions. When you say that you haven't done what you said you're going to do, they can say, well, what's holding you back? What do you think your problem is with this in particular? Why are you afraid of taking that step, or whatever the hard question in that moment needs to be? But we need to invite accountability into our life. And that's a problem for many of us, because we want to change, but we're afraid to make it public. And, we don't have to go to Facebook and social media and tell the world that we're going to be changing how we do our relationships or whatever, our, professional life or whatever in the next month or 12 months or whatever. We don't have to go public like that. Too many people do go public, I think, with that, and then they never really do anything with it, because there's also a weirdness about that, because while you go public like that, you really aren't inviting accountability, because you're just broadcasting something out there that people may or may not even see or pay attention to. But if you said to a friend or your spouse or somebody, your boss even, or coworker, I realize I need to grow in this area. So over the next amount of time, I'm going to really invest in myself and grow in this area. But I want you to check on me. I want to meet with you regularly. Maybe once every 2 weeks we'll check in, or once a month or something. And I want you to ask me, how am I doing? And I want you to ask me the hard questions. Am I growing that area? What's holding me back? Why am I not taking certain actions? What can I do next? What should I be doing more of? What should I be doing less of? Inviting accountability. People are willing to do that for you, but they're not going to do it for you without being invited most of the time. Some people like to hold people accountable just because they think that they're kind of the sheriff of the world, and that's not who you want. You want somebody that really is humble about it. That they're not looking to just rake you over the coals, but they're really wanting to help you grow. And so, invite accountability. Be accountable to somebody, because that will help you to grow exponentially. So, first of all, take action now. Face your fears. Make a growth plan, and be accountable. If you'll do those 4 things, those are not the exhaustive list of growth and how to be intentional. But if you do those 4 things, you're going to be well on your way to having intentional growth and intentional breakthroughs happen in your life. The only guarantee that we can go after is that we can get a little bit better day by day by day. And we can only get better when we invest in ourselves, when we're intentional about that investment. And so I want to draw us back to this quote. I shared this at last month's First Friday Fellowship, and I wanted to bring it back to the forefront, because I think that this speaks so much to where I think most people would want to live, and what most people would love their lives to look like. It says this is L.P. Jacks. He said, "A master in the art of living drills no sharp distinction between his work and his play, his labor and his leisure, his mind and his body, his education and his recreation. He hardly knows which is which. He simply pursues his vision of excellence through whatever he is doing, and leaves others to determine whether he is working or playing. To himself, he always appears to be doing both." You see, the heart behind this quote is that if we're truly living in our sweet spot of life, our gifting and our strengths, then whether we are working and we're on the clock, or whether we're just living life and playing, there's really not that big of a difference for us. Because we don't feel emotionally like when you go to work, you don't feel the drudgery because you love what you do. You feel like you're in your sweet spot. You're in your strength zone. Or when you're playing, you just feel that's just you're enjoying life. You're truly feeling like you're in the right place at the right time, doing what you want to do, doing what you love to do. And I believe that most people, if not all, would love for this statement to define their life. But we are not going to get there without intentionality. We're not going to be able to be in this place where our work and our play are almost synonymous. That what we're doing for a career or profession is so fun to us, is so enjoyable to us that it doesn't matter if we're working or playing because we feel the same way at all times. This requires intentionality to get there. It requires the upfront work, the upfront action that we need to take in order to get there. So one of the things that I am offering right now, something that I've been developing with one of my coaches is a 45-minute strategy session that is focused on your goals and your dreams. And so I have a big goal right now that in 100 days, between now and the middle of January, I want to give away 100 free 45-minute strategy sessions because I want to help people like yourself be able to take action, take not just action, but intentional, strategic action. See, one of the problems for me that I've learned of being a very type A personality, very driven, very go get it done, is that I can do a lot of activity, but it may not be productive activity. And so what I can help you with in this free 45-minute strategy session is to look at what is your vision, what are your barriers, and what are the things that you need to do to actually achieve the goals that you have and to meet, go after the dreams that you have. And so if you're interested in that, all I need you to do is shoot me an email at chris@leadlifebig.com. And then from that point, I will, correspond with you to set up a time for that. I have a packet that I have asked for you to fill out to give me some background information before our call so that we can actually maximize the time that we have. But I'm excited about doing this because, part of my growth has been that I want to just expand my influence to help people grow. I don't want to just read books and go to seminars and do trainings and be certified in certain areas for my own well-being. I want to do that for other people. I want to do that on your behalf. I want to do that so that you can become a better leader, a better husband, a better wife, a better parent, a better neighbor, a better coach, whatever you do in life. Better worker, better boss, better owner, wherever you find yourself. I want to help you be a better version of yourself because I know that as I'm becoming a better version of myself, how energized, how excited I have become. And so I simply want to offer this. It's my gift to you. I want to share with you over 45 minutes. I walk you through a strategic map of helping you identify and get clear on some goals. I want you to be clear on the barriers, and I want to be clear on those next steps that you need to take in order to achieve those things that you want to achieve. And so, once again, just shoot me an email, chris@leadlifebig.com, and we'll get the process going to set that up. Our next First Friday Fellowship is going to be Friday, November 3rd. It'll be same time, 9:30 a.m. Eastern. And I would love to see you on that live, but also I'm recording these for a reason. Like I said at the beginning, I'm recording these so that you can watch this at the convenience of your schedule. I know that schedules are tight, between work and family commitments and all sorts of things. It's tough to find the perfect time. So I do this for because it's a good time for me, but I record it because I want it to be a good time for you to have an opportunity to grow in this. And so once again, thanks for being with me on the First Friday Fellowship. If you have any questions, not just looking for the strategy session, but if you have any questions or any follow-up that you'd like to do based on this topic, feel free to email me Chris at leadlifebig.com anytime. Also, you can find me on Facebook. My Facebook page is Lead Life Big. So you can find me there, and would love to interact with you. Would love to just continue the conversation. I hope that you have a great day. I hope that you will take these steps to become intentional, because your intentionality is so important in your own personal growth. I look forward to connecting next time. And until then, you have a great day.